We begin with the dire situation at Muncie Community Schools.
With MCS facing a multi-million-dollar deficit, there's been a public struggle between administrators wanting to cut costs and a teachers association that wants the district to pay the teachers their worth. Newslink Indiana's Tony Sandlaben has the story on how a third party is making its voice heard.
The goal is just to get everybody together in a coordinated, organized campaign.
Ari Hurwitz is a Muncie Community Schools parent. He's helped organize a Delaware County chapter of the Indiana Coalition for Public Education, or ICPE. A rally held before Tuesday night's school board meeting was the group's first organized event. Hurwitz says he hopes the group can provide a unified voice for parents, community members, and smaller organizations.
We're meeting with PTO organizations, we're meeting with neighborhood organizations, we're going to meet with business leaders, as well as concerned clergy, and try to get the whole community involved.
Muncie Teachers Association President Pat Kennedy says she is encouraged by the community's response to the district's financial struggles.
They are concerned for their whole community and for their children, and they see what can happen to this community, so I am so proud of them.
The next project for ICPE is a Q&A with board members Robert Warner and Jason Donetti. Both will sit with a moderator from ICPE and answer questions submitted by community members, something Donetti feels will ease tensions.
I think it will help just build relationships, and it helps establish good partnerships with the district and board members and groups in the community that are doing good work.
Hurwitz says he hopes this new coalition can not only improve transparency between the board and the public, but also convince the state government to provide more funding to the district.
Joining us now is Tony Sandlaben. And Tony, you said in that piece that this organization wants to reach out to the state government. Are there any plans in place for that?
There are plans in place. The next step for this organization is what they're calling a video campaign. They're looking for community members to make 30-second to 2-minute videos of themselves talking about what MCS schools mean to them, what would happen if teachers were to leave, basically trying to avoid that worst case scenario. Their plan is to make this a viral campaign that will eventually reach the governor as well as the state assembly to get more funding to the district.
And Tony, you mentioned funding. Has there been any development with the MCS financial situation?
There has been. There have been 2 major steps that were taken last night at the last school board meeting. The first was that the board has agreed to look for a new grant from an organization called the Distressed Unit Appeals Board, which is a state-run board that has dealt with this kind of thing before. Cities like Gary, Indiana have searched for money from this committee. The Muncie School Board is looking for about $5 million from that board. It's unknown whether or not they will actually get that amount or when they will hear an answer. The other major step was a change in the transportation method for Muncie Community Schools. The board decided to move on from longtime local company M&M and is now working with Auxilio, a company based out of Michigan that is more nationally known. This effectively means M&M will go out of business, but Stephen Ball, the superintendent of Muncie Community Schools, said this decision was made to save the school a lot of much needed money.
Well, hopefully we look to see some improvements with that financial situation. Tony, thank you very much for joining us.
And as Muncie Community Schools awaits the decision by the state-appointed fact finder on which offer the district will move forward with, the school board appears to be taking a wait-and-see approach.
That's right, Abby. And right now we're joined by Newslink's Tony Sandlaben, who's been following the situation for the last month. Tony, thank you very much for being with us. What can you update us on?
Well, Emerson, Abby, good evening. Good evening, everyone. There's definitely been a wait-and-see approach. Last night, the MCS board was expected to vote on 2 proposals they received and discuss a third. Those proposals included bids from Sater Electric and Quality Heating and Plumbing that would pay for repairs to boilers at Southview Elementary and Muncie Central. The discussion was supposed to be over a third contract that would control asbestos on those boilers. However, all of those were tabled by recommendation of the superintendent. He felt the board should wait until the fact finder makes a decision so the district knows where they will be concerning the teacher's contract. So essentially, guys, the school board is at a complete standstill when it comes to financial decisions as they wait for the fact finder to announce whether to go with the board's proposal or the Muncie Teachers Association's proposal on the next teacher contract.
And do we know when the fact finder will make a decision?
The fact finder should make a decision sometime in the next couple of days, but they do have all the way until Monday of next week to make that decision. So the board expects sometime this week, but at the very latest Monday.
And Tony, with all of this going on, is Ball State making an effort to help the district at all?
Ball State's made a couple of efforts for here and there, but one thing that was very interesting to note, last night the school's board superintendent, Stephen Ball, talked about a possible partnership between Ball State's Teachers College and the Muncie School District that would essentially make the Muncie School District a professional development district rather than just a handful of professional development schools. He said that this would be a pilot program that could be launched in the fall. However, we're waiting on a remark from the Teachers College itself to decide to talk about whether or not there is a plan in place. They have not confirmed as of yet.
Well, thank you very much, Tony. Your updates over the past month have been appreciated.
Absolutely.
Gary, Indiana school system's financial crisis has led to a bill in the Indiana State House aimed specifically at helping Gary schools. But House Education Committee Chairman Bob Baining pointed out similarities between both Gary and MCS.
They both are kind of in this similar situation where they've had should have made some adjustments in terms of overall size of the district, adjusting their enrollments closer to where, their facilities and staffing closer to where their enrollment is.
Throughout their financial crises, Gary and Muncie Community Schools have both faced multi-million-dollar deficits, declining enrollment, low property tax revenue, and the inability to pass referendums to raise local taxes. Senate Bill 567, the bill going through the General Assembly, would allow the Distressed Unit Appeals Board, or DUAB, to not only give out loans to Gary schools, but also overtake certain responsibilities from their school board. With MCS also set to apply for a loan from DUAB, Superintendent Stephen Ball says he hopes Muncie School Board will still be allowed to run independently.
And one of the goals and the direction I've been given from the board is that the Muncie Community Schools wants to be a self-directed entity. And so they are willing to make the tough decisions they need to make that will keep us out of state control. The key is we need to make sure we have all the tools necessary to do that.
One thing Muncie has that Gary does not, a public university. At the last board meeting, Ball said he has been in talks with Ball State about a possible partnership between MCS and Ball State's Teachers College in an effort to promote more of the positives in the MCS district. Meanwhile, the board is tabling all financial decisions until the state-appointed fact finder announces the new teacher's contract. In Muncie, Tony Sandlaben, NewsLink, Indiana.
Well, today, along with this past weekend, there were some major developments in the Muncie Community Schools saga. Here to break it all down for us is NewsLink Indiana's Tony Sandlaben. Tony, thanks for being here.
Well, thank you for having me, guys. You're absolutely right. Big news today regarding a potential government takeover of the district. But first, let's get you caught up on the state fact finder siding with the Muncie Teachers Association.
This is a major victory for teachers across the state of Indiana. It gives them hope that at least there is a chance of winning and someone's listening.
While Muncie Teachers Association President Pat Kennedy is encouraged, the district is not. In a statement, school officials say MCS will have little choice but to make significant cuts to operational costs. It mentions possibly closing 4 elementary schools and a middle school. It's something Kennedy feels could have dire consequences.
I think it would be very detrimental. I think we will lose students to other school corporations. They will be pulled out, and every time you lose a student, you lose the money that comes with that student. So I think it will have a very serious long-term effect.
Kennedy feels the school board is trying to cut the debt too quickly, while the district feels the financial situation is too dire. It hopes the fact finder's decision will be overturned by appeal, but that has parents like Ari Hurwitz concerned.
This could drag on into the summer, and I think it just I think no matter what was chosen, it's going to be an unknown for so long, and it's, I think, ultimately difficult for families and students, which is the sad thing about it.
The district says it will need to cut nearly $2 million for the new teacher's insurance plan. In another statement in mid-March, the district said it will likely make its decision on which schools to close sometime in May.
Now, neither Superintendent Stephen Ball nor members of the board commented on the fact finder's decision. Meanwhile, big news today, the Indiana House Ways and Means Committee added an amendment to a bill that would allow for a government takeover of Muncie Community Schools. Now, originally, this bill would only affect Gary schools, but following findings by the State Board of Accounts Committee, Committee Chairman Tim Brown proposed adding Muncie to the bill as well. The bill would allow the state government to appoint an emergency manager to oversee all financial decisions for the district. That person would have jurisdiction over the school board and superintendent. Now, in order to regain independent control, MCS would have to operate while taking in more money than it spends for 2 years. That bill passed the committee today and will now go to the House floor for a vote.
Now, Tony, how long until the House is going to vote?
The House should vote either Wednesday or Thursday, but that doesn't end the bill there. Because this is a different bill than what was passed in the Senate, it would then go to the conference committee. They would likely vote on it in 2 weeks, and should it pass there, then it goes to Governor Eric Holcomb's desk.
All right, we'll continue to keep tabs on the story, Tony. Thank you very much.
Muncie Community Schools continue to work through their financial situation, the state government is keeping a close eye on the school board.
That's right, Abby. And last night, the school board met publicly for the first time since Muncie was added to a bill that would allow for the state government to take over MCS. Newslink Indiana's Tony Sandlaben joins us now with an update. Tony, thank you for being here.
Well, Emerson, Abby, good evening. Good evening, everyone. Last night, the public heard the district's debt reduction plan for the first time. The decision to approve that plan was tabled, but let's get you caught up on how the plan can affect you and what's next for the district.
We're really at the point where we're not sure month to month if we're going to have enough money to make sure we make payroll, particularly by the end of the summer.
Muncie Community School Superintendent Stephen Ball says there's more motivating the board to fix the district's money problems than just the looming government takeover.
Cash flow is at a crisis point.
At Tuesday night's board meeting, Ball presented the district's debt reduction plan in an effort to show the public and the state government that MCS can work out their problems on their own. But public comments following the presentation showed tensions were still high.
I want to ask one question. Does anybody think of that child? That child, not the facility, not the building, not how much money they're going to be making. Let's get for the kids. That's our community, not up here for the money.
After meeting with the Facilities Committee, Ball recommended the board close Northside Middle School, Storer Elementary School, Mitchell Elementary School, Sutton Elementary School, and close the Muncie Area Career Center and relocate those programs elsewhere. Closing those schools would save the district about $4 million. The plan as a whole would reduce the debt by about $13 million. However, Ball says the plan would still leave a $4.3 million deficit and does not address outstanding debt or bonds. Board President Debbie Fike acknowledged the complications with this proposal.
It's a contradiction where we ask for parent support and we want parents involved in our school, and then we say, but you're going to have to become supportive of another school because we're going to close yours. And that creates some real emotionality.
MCS had previously said schools would need to close if a state fact finder chose the Teachers Association offer for a new teacher's contract, something that happened earlier this month. In a statement, district officials said they might appeal that decision. As of Tuesday night, the board still has not decided on that appeal. If they move forward, the process could take up to 3 months.
And the members of the conference committee that will discuss the possible government takeover of MCS have been assigned, but no meeting has been scheduled as of yet. In the meantime, the district has postponed registration for pre-K and kindergarten. The school board has also scheduled an emergency public hearing for tomorrow night from 5 to 7 to get public input on the debt reduction plan. Following that will be a vote by the board on the plan itself at 7:15.
All right, Tony. Well, thank you very much for joining us, and be sure to tune into Newslink tomorrow night at 6 for a live update from that hearing.
Muncie residents are getting a chance to make their voices heard after learning about the Muncie Community Schools debt reduction plan Tuesday night. The school board called an emergency public hearing.
Newslink Indiana's Tony Sandlaben is live at the meeting now with more on how the public is responding to the plan.
Good evening, everyone. Tony Sandlaben here. We are standing.
Good evening, everyone. Tony Sandlaben.
The Southside Middle School auditorium, where public comment has just begun about an hour into the meeting. Up until this point, it was Superintendent Ball taking questions from the school board about the debt reduction plan itself. But one thing he did point out was expansion of programming. 2 programs in particular, STEM and STEAM. STEM being science, technology, engineering, and math, and STEAM being science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. Both of those are programs teachers can teach students in elementary schools if they are properly certified, something Ball State has been working on with their elementary education students. Stephen Ball did say Ball State could help MCS to that end.
I actually talked to their interim president and Dr. King today about the fact that he's more than willing, as we look at that, to potentially get the sponsored programs people at Ball State, so they're grant writers, to help us find some grant money to try to get that program up and board.
Keep in mind, the conference committee at the State House for Senate Bill 567, which would allow for a state takeover of MCS, has been assigned, but as of now, no meeting has been scheduled. That will be sometime this week. Live in Muncie, Tony Sandlaben, Newslink, Indiana.
Thank you, Tony. The board will be voting on the debt reduction plan tonight at 7:15. Newslink Indiana will continue to update you on this story as it develops.
After presenting the debt reduction plan Tuesday night, which sparked emotion from the public,
Let's get for the kids. That's our community, not up here for the money.
The Muncie Community School Board tabled their decision to approve the plan. Instead, they scheduled an emergency public hearing and special board meeting for Thursday night. It was the first meeting that saw Muncie Mayor Dennis Tyler speak during public comments. Afterwards, he was optimistic about what the plan shows.
I'm really rather confident right now. I think the General Assembly is looking at what Muncie's trying to do to show the importance of us staying out of Senate Bill 567 and that we're willing to work together on deficit reduction, and so I'm really rather confident right now.
After hearing from the public and debating amongst themselves, the board voted 3-2 to close Sutton, Storer, and Mitchell elementary schools in the fall and keep Northside Middle School open for another year as they look for funding to build a new Northside on Sutton property. Superintendent Stephen Ball said this was the best option for the district.
The facilities committee from the start, and actually I've always advocated from our strategic planning process, is to have a 2 middle school solution for Muncie. It's just our community that works more appropriately than anything else.
MCS now has a plan that they will follow in the immediate future. In the meantime, a conference committee is set to meet sometime next week to discuss Senate Bill 567 and a possible government takeover of the district. In Muncie, Tony Sandlaben, NewsLink, Indiana.
The machine is closed. Clerk will tally the roll. Roll call shows 50 ayes, 0 nays. Conference committee report has passed. Secretary will inform the House of the passage of the conference committee report.
Senate Bill 567, the bill that originally would allow for a government takeover of Muncie community schools, was amended then passed in both houses of the General Assembly. The version that passed gives MCS a chance to make progress on their financial problems on their own, something Superintendent Stephen Ball says is the best case scenario.
I think we're probably have the best bill that we could have expected given our fiscal situation. I mean, being labeled financially impaired is not really a difficult thing to, embrace when we've been financially impaired for years.
The bill gives MCS until January to make progress on their financial situation before being considered for a takeover again. But what does progress mean? Representative Tim Brown, the lawmaker who added MCS to Senate Bill 567, says the plan is already in place.
Well, they approved April 17th a deficit reduction plan, so would like to see that implemented. And if they can carry out that, I think that's a huge step and a progress forward.
Brown said ultimately he would like to see the district operating with a positive cash flow, but he does not expect that to happen in the next 6 months. Meanwhile, Ball and the school board are scheduled to meet with the Distressed Unit Appeals Board on Monday, where clear expectations will likely be discussed. In Muncie, Tony Sandlaben, NewsLink, Indiana. $3.7 million. That is what Muncie Community Schools owes at the end of 2017. But thanks to a plan approved by the school board today, that money will be paid.
This isn't a long-term solution, but this at least is a midterm solution.
MCS Chief Financial Officer Bob Coddington said the school district is rearranging the debt in order to pay what they owe in December. But the plan will still leave an $11 million deficit for the foreseeable future, with a debt spike expected in 2023. Coddington says the line item budget the school board approved earlier this year will keep that debt spike in check and will slowly cut away at the deficit. With a government takeover still a possibility, State Representative Sue Arrington says she is optimistic about Muncie remaining independent, but she did say there was one thing the district could do in the time left before the government's decision.
Well, definitely the teacher contract. I think that's something that is sort of pending out there.
The framework for that teacher contract was approved over the summer, but the final deal has not yet been signed. Today's meeting was scheduled as a public hearing, and after Coddington's presentation, the public was invited to the podium to make remarks, but no one did. Meanwhile, when asked about Coddington's presentation and plan, MCS Superintendent Stephen Ball could only say that Bob Coddington is a genius. So guys, quite a lot to take in there.
That's right. That is a lot of information there. So what does this say about the district's financial situation right now?
Well, Coddington was pretty frank when he was asked about how the district ended up in this situation. He said he felt like leadership in 2014 and 2015 simply didn't grasp the full financial situation, which could explain why the numbers got to where they are.
And is there pressure mounting on that district now that it's October?
Well, anybody in Muncie Community Schools will tell you that there's been pressure from the beginning of this situation, especially board members and the emergency management team. But like you said, it's October, which means they have roughly a month and a half left to make enough progress on that financial deficit, on that financial debt, to prove to the government that they don't need to be fully taken over.
Muncie Community Schools emergency manager Steve Edwards, whose team is managing the district's finances through December, says no one wants to cut programs, but his team's strategy is changing.
That very well may be that Muncie today cannot afford all the programs that they have.
Edwards would not single out programs to be cut, but he says administrator assistants will be looking for public input at 2 upcoming forums, one on October 5th and the other on December 7th. It's all in an effort to cut the overall budget from $46 million to $34 million over the next 2 years. Maintenance spending is also going to change. MCS Chief Financial Officer Bob Coddington says the new plan is simple.
You know what roof we're going to fix in 2018? The one that leaks.
Coddington says the plan is to spend by need instead of taking preventive measures because the district just isn't there yet. Meanwhile, Administrator Assistance founder Steve Wittenauer is still asking the community to think positively.
Sometimes in the community, they think we're just broke. We're going to have to shut the doors tomorrow because we have no money. Just want to make sure everybody understands. We're getting money, it's just not enough to cover our expenses.
Wittenauer says he hopes once the financial situation stabilizes, families who have transferred students will return them to Muncie Community Schools classrooms. In Muncie, Tony Sandlaben, NewsLink, Indiana.
Muncie is getting a chance to speak directly to those in charge of Muncie Community Schools.
The MCS Emergency Management Team is hosting a town hall tomorrow night, and NewsLink Indiana's Tony Sandlaben is live in the newsroom with more on what it hopes to be public. Tony?
Well, just a few weeks after hearing that the emergency management team is planning to cut programs from schools, parents, teachers, and students all are going to get their chance to make their voices heard at a town hall tomorrow night. Now, emergency manager Steve Edwards said that initially this town hall was planned to give people an impression of what the financial situation looks like and how close they are to achieving a balanced budget. But then at a Distressed Unit Appeals Board presentation, Edwards made this statement.
That very well may be that Muncie today cannot afford all the programs that they have.
Now, neither Edwards nor the school board would say what programs they are looking at cutting. Today was the last day to submit questions for tomorrow's town hall. That is scheduled for 7 o'clock tomorrow night at the Muncie Central High School auditorium. If you can't make it, there will be another one scheduled in just a couple of weeks. Live in the newsroom, Tony Sandlaben, NewsLink, Indiana.
Thank you, Tony. Muncie Schools Emergency Management Team has not yet announced when the second town hall will be. We will keep you updated when the announcement is made.
Welcome back. Well, as Ball State makes moves to help MCS, the state government is doing the same.
Tonight, the Distressed Unit Appeals Board held a public hearing to get the community's input whether or not the state should fully take over the district. NewsLink Indiana's Tony Sandlaben has the story on how close the school system is to a full takeover.
I know together, Muncie will get it done. We can do this.
That is the sentiment from tonight's public hearing. Muncie does not want the state running its school system. Right now, the district is considered fiscally impaired, meaning the government has control of the financial decisions for the district through the emergency manager administrator assistants.
That very well may be that Muncie today cannot afford all the programs that they have.
Emergency manager Steve Edwards has not said what programs his team is thinking of cutting. His team is also looking at cutting more teaching positions, something Muncie Teachers Association President Pat Kennedy feels is demoralizing.
We just keep telling people better times are coming, and we just keep going. I think when they see me going every day and just keep at it, then that brings them along too.
In its time with administrator assistants, Muncie Community Schools has approved a line-item budget that it says will keep the district financially stable for the foreseeable future. It has also restructured its bonds in order to pay what it owes at the end of 2017. That move still leaves an $11 million deficit. The district has until December 31st to make what the state has called progress on its financial situation. Until then, the public will have to wait
First, we had
and
just
see.
a general.
The Distressed Unit Appeals Board emphasized that they would not be making a decision tonight. It instead wants to give the district the rest of the month to continue its work. DUAB said the meeting where they will announce their decision will be next month, more than likely in Indianapolis.
So, Tony, all the representatives from the school board gave some presentations. What did they have to say?
Essentially, they wanted to emphasize that this school board can handle the financial situation on their own and that they don't need the full government takeover. Andy Warner specifically, you saw him there a second ago, he emphasized that the school board has already made very, very difficult decisions. They've proven that they are willing to do that, and so they say that they will continue to do so here in the near future.
And Tony, what is the next step for the district?
The next step is to see what the Distressed Unit Appeals Board is going to decide. If DUAB does decide that the district has not made enough progress and they will go under a full takeover, then a new emergency manager will be appointed. Now, that may be the same team that we see now in administrator assistants, or it could be another brand new team entirely. So it all depends on when DUAB makes that decision and what they do decide. As I said, they have until December 31st to make that decision.
All right, well, thank you very much, Tony. And we will, of course, continue to keep you updated on the school district's developments as they become available.
The machine is closed. Clerk will tally the roll. Roll call shows 50 ayes, 0 nays. Conference committee report has passed.
It's been almost 8 months since Muncie Community Schools was declared fiscally impaired and went under partial state control. Administrator assistance was hired as the district's emergency manager in June. The district then had 6 months to make progress on fixing its financial problems.
You know what roof we're going to fix in 2018? The one that leaks.
In that time, MCS Chief Financial Officer Bob Coddington worked with the emergency management team to create a line item budget to keep the district spending within its means from here on out. MCS has also committed to a spending by need basis instead of preventive measures. In other words, the district will now spend to fix what is broken as opposed to what might break.
More recently, the district made a deal to sell Northside Middle School to Ball State University. The deal gave the district 5 years to find a plan to replace the building, as well as thousands of dollars in financial aid for maintenance fees.
The district has also rearranged its bonds to pay what it owes at the end of this year. But that move still leaves an $11 million deficit for the foreseeable future, and no plan has been announced on how to repair the Muncie Central Fieldhouse that was severely damaged by a tornado. State Representative Sue Arrington says there is also one more thing the district could do while it is still out of full state control.
Well, definitely the teacher contract. I think that's something that is sort of pending out there.
Administrator assistants announced it would recommend cutting some classroom programs, but still has not said what those programs will be. Meanwhile, as the government's decision looms, the community can only wait and see. In Muncie, Tony Sandlaben, NewsLink, Indiana.
The Distressed Unit Appeals Board today voted unanimously in favor of a full takeover of Muncie Community Schools. This means that MCS will now be labeled as a distressed political subdivision, meaning they will be under the full control of a state-appointed emergency manager. That emergency manager will have final say on all financial and academic decisions for the foreseeable future for the district. The district can get out of this label if they operate with a balanced budget for 2 years and then present a plan to the Distressed Unit Appeals Board that lays out the finances for the following 5 years. DUAB also voted to extend administrator assistant's contract for 6 months, meaning that contract will now expire on June 30th of 2018. That allows administrator assistants to continue to operate as the emergency manager for the rest of this current school year. At that time, DUAB will then decide if they want to continue with administrator assistants as the emergency manager or explore other options and hire another individual or another team to take over for the long term. Board Chairman Micah Vincent wants MCS parents to know that the district is not in any danger of closing. In fact, he said the work that's being done with the district should be reason for optimism. Progress was made, according to DUAB, over the last 6 months that Muncie Community Schools was labeled as fiscally impaired, but not enough progress. So the move today, according to Micah Vincent, will ensure that the financial problems that MCS is dealing with will be solved soon. In the State House, Tony Sandlaben, NewsLink, Indiana.